Here we go. What's up, horror fans? Pete here from the Lasser Cast. We're me and my good friend Danny, Dr. Zayas God, Torkel, talk about horror movies and streaming shows. This week we are talking about Yellowjackets Season 3, Episode 7, which, if you saw our thumbnail, I said was the best episode of Season 3. Does Danny feel that way? Let's find out.
In the immortal words of Homer Simpson, the two greatest words in the English language, default.
Default.
Yes. I think this was absolutely the best episode of the season because it finally offered us something different. I feel like the show, and we've made this point week after week after week, that it kind of, this whole season felt like treading water. And finally, we got an episode. I thought really this all started obviously with the ending of last week's episode, which was like a jaw-dropping, like, oh my God moment for this show, especially in this season. And
Right.
and then this episode, I thought, did a great job of capitalizing on that holy shit moment at the end of last week's. I think this episode is going to be a pivot point
Mm-hmm.
where we might look back in a couple of weeks at the season finale and go, man, they really pulled out a great last couple of episodes, and they really salvaged this season based on the strength of the ending of season 6 and this episode. I think this episode offers so many potential possibilities for the future,
Right.
especially for the younger cast, the
Mm-hmm.
90s cast, and also for present day, where the adults. I'm just really, for the first time this season, I can say I'm excited. And with that excitement comes a little bit of trepidation.
Okay.
I had my typical 30-minute Yellow Jackets debrief with my sister this afternoon,
Excellent.
and we talked about a lot of things that I will obviously we'll talk about here. But to answer your question, yes, easily the best episode of season 3. Maybe the best episode since the end of season 1. Maybe that's crazy to say, but I thought season 2 was a big step down from season 1.
Yeah.
This was the first episode that made me feel like, holy shit, okay,
Yeah.
wow. Like,
Yeah.
I was like audibly watching this episode.
Yeah. Well, your sister and you have your weekly conversations, and I know that she is a big advocate for that everything is actually just at face value. There's no supernatural side to this, right? And boy, does the very beginning of this episode give credence to your sister's theory. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
No. I said to her, I said at this point, I'm, I think the writers have made it very obvious. They've basically, this entire season has been them step by step, piece by piece, removing any shred of supernatural from the show. Episode by episode, like, oh, maybe it's the wilderness. No, it's this. There's gas in the cave. Oh, maybe, but what about the howls from the Wendigo monster? No, it's fucking frogs having an orgy in the fucking woods. And yeah, like and I love that they've done that. And I've come around to the idea that I love that there's no supernatural in it. And at the same time, I think this is a case where if the writers wanted to be fucking hilarious, they would do a full 360 and come back around and, like in season 4, reveal that, oh no, there actually is a supernatural presence. All of those explanations that we gave you, they were real, but they're all in subservience to this greater force. I don't think that will end up being the case, but I do
Right.
think that the writers have a chance to do one of the most hilarious things possible in television.
Yes. For me, when I think about the supernatural versus non-supernatural part, I do think about the probability of all these girls having these issues prior to crashing, right? Because Lottie has like severe mental illness, where like she's even had like prescient kind of visions. Thaisa has this thing where she has like a different personality that she switches into, and then Shauna's thing isn't as supernatural, but she's pretty cold blooded even back in the past. Then finally we have Misty, and Misty, she's a fucking sociopath. So, Nat had all these issues too, but she was kind of the most normal of the main characters once they crashed.
So,
And then, go ahead.
yeah, like one of the things that we talked about was that really, though, Thaisa and Lottie are the two who had pre-conditioned situations. Shauna, who at this point, adult Shauna, is just Ted Bundy. She's like, I have a husband, I have a kid, I'm a normal suburban mom. No, I'm a genuine psychopath. I'm bringing knives to people's houses who I don't know, and I'm gonna kick the door open and kill them. Um, Shauna lost the baby, lost her best friend, forced to eat her best friend. I can understand Shauna's mental breakdown into psychopathy, into sociopathy. Misty was like you know, this kind of like I guess like a loser in high school who, somebody who's extra needy, and then kind of just grows into the most extreme version of that as an adult. Nat and um
Travis?
Nat Nat and Travis, they were normal, the most probably normal characters, and they become addicts as adults, I think, obviously in part. Um and I will say, this is another thing we've talked about with this show. Sophie Thatcher's so fucking good, and it I think it's very obvious that when this show was created,
Yeah.
Nat was supposed to be the main, if not the main character, the main protagonist, and Shauna would grow to become the antagonist. And I feel like we were, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the writers envisioned a story arc where Melanie Linsky, Shauna, and Juliette Lewis's Nat would finally come to blows as like Yellowjacket good versus Yellowjacket bad. And whatever the reason Juliette Lewis left the show really leaves a hole in it for me, because I care so much about Nat the Yellowjacket, Nat Sophie Thatcher, being this like genuine like person, like the only like normal one left, so to speak. And knowing that, well, Juliette Lewis is gone. That's it. There's no more adult Nat.
Yeah.
It kind of we've talked about how like it lessens the younger characters when the older characters have been killed off.
Yeah, of course. Like Travis
Although I
too.
will
Yeah.
say they did make Lottie a shitload more interesting this week.
Yes, yes, yes. So let's unpack that. Let's talk about what actually happens in this episode right here, right? So the episode starts off with three people in the woods, and they're all part of like a research mission. And one of them is Joel McHale, playing a guy named Kodiak or Cody.
Badass Joel McHale.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So we have him, and then we have these two other actors, which I recognize them from other stuff, but I don't know their names, like the names of the actors. I think one of the guys was in Breaking Bad, actually. The guy, he was like a veterinarian in Breaking Bad, and Better Call Saul. But they're basically researching these frogs that are making this noise, and the frogs mate at this time of year. But it's like years and years of them being frozen in like hibernation. So it's like a special event. And we see into their life, we see that they have this special kind of phone that can make a call back to civilization. They could rescue the Yellowjackets right now. But with them messing around, they actually break their phone accidentally. Besides that, you don't really know what's going on with this Cody guy. He seems kind of shady. He seems like he's kind of hiding something himself. I was very worried because they start off this episode with Lottie just fucking killing this one guy right off the bat. That's the one that finds them. And I was like, oh shit, are they just going to kill all these people in this episode? But by the end of the episode, spoilers, they don't kill the other two. And so there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah. What I love about that, I first of all, I love that they gave these three characters like the opening 10 minutes. I didn't feel that was forced exposition. I feel like that's kind of important context to understand. Like they're not just randos walking in the woods who stumble upon the Yellowjackets who've been there for over a year now. I think so. I do think that's important. I do think it was important that they established that Kodiak was capable of potentially living out in the wilderness by himself. And that they had a sat phone that gets broken. And I love that when they show up, there's this moment where you observe the faces of the Yellowjackets. And the first words you hear from one of the Yellowjackets is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's Van who says, "We're going home."
Oh, it was Van? I thought it was Misty, but I might be wrong.
It was, they pan around quickly. I remember Liv Hewson, like, with almost like a tear in her eye, being like, "We're going home." And it's this idea of like, half of them, most of them seemed really excited. Oh my God, there's human beings. We're going to be rescued. And then there are Lottie and Shauna who were like, "Don't fuck with our wilderness. This is our wilderness." And Lottie, and this is, to me, this was a super important moment in the entire series.
Yeah.
Because this is the first murder. Like the other deaths were a combination of accidental and
kind of self-inflicted, right? Like
self-inflicted, mercy kills, like Coach Ben.
Right.
Obviously, Javi, yes, they chase him, but he falls into the ice, and yes, they choose not to rescue him or make the best effort to rescue him, but that was also just him falling through the ice. Obviously, Jackie dies from the cold, and this is the first time where the Yellowjackets and Lottie, being the leader, basically commits just absolute murder, and to a point where it looks like she's almost eating the guy's brain out of the back of his head. And the second that happens, Shauna's reaction is like, "All right, I guess we got to kill them all now."
Right.
Like within the blink of an eye, like Shauna just snaps into like, "All right, well, now they all have to die." Right. Meanwhile, half of the girls are like, "Wait, what are we doing?"
Yeah.
And I think this is going to lead into like a Yellowjacket civil war, sort of, where you're going to have the factions kind of split between, who wants to escape and use these adults to get them out of there, and who wants to just kill them and keep going.
Right. No, I know. And it's funny because we cover this show on our YouTube channel, our horror review channel. And it's always because it's sort of like horror adjacent, or it has these horror elements. The idea of these three people traveling through the woods, and then they come across this campground where these girls are just acting like lunatics and they're just in the middle of nowhere. It's a horror movie scene. Like you would watch a horror movie and you'd follow these three protagonists, and then you would find this campsite and you'd see these crazy girls. And if you didn't know anything about the Yellowjackets, you'd be like, "What am I seeing? What is going on here?" And it'd be very scary. in horror
I
movies.
just rewatched David Bruckner's The Ritual, which is still on Netflix and still a great fucking monster movie. And I introduced it to Charlotte probably about a month ago now. And that movie is about adults lost in the woods who come upon a cult who worship a wilderness monster. And like it doesn't work out well for them, and like that is pure horror. And I mean, think about the way this episode starts. The three of them come upon the Yellowjackets. They're dancing around, they're covered in blood, and Coach Ben's head is on a pike. So it's like it's a horror movie at this point.
Yep. Yep.
Completely. And you know, again, Coach Ben was the first time where they ate. Uh, this is Coach Ben was the first person they ate by choice, where it wasn't like a we need to cannibalize somebody to survive. It was a choice,
Right.
and one episode later, they're now straight up murdering people.
Yep. 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 Yeah, and it's so intense, like because you learn more about these people. There's Hannah, who is one of the three people. She's hiding. We find out that she's the one that made this recording that's been kind of floating around this season that the daughter found, Shauna's daughter found, and then we find out that Hannah had a child of her own. Now that kind of seems like a little far fetched. It's like, okay, so this woman that they find randomly in the woods also happens to have like a secret kid back home that like nobody knows about. It's like a little bit kind of pushing it, but that's okay. I still am enjoying it. That she's going to be what's her face, Hillary Swank. You know, next season episode. No, you shaking your head. What is it freezing?
No, I. This is my one issue that I have.
Okay.
And so the they make an off the adults. So now it's Melanie Linsky, Christina Ricci, Van and Thaisa. They are driving, and there's an offhanded comment made. And this is a show that really never reveals too much about the wilderness from the adult point of view.
Right.
And they just drop this offhanded comment about how, well, Jen and Melissa are dead. And Melissa is Shauna's ex, who before this season was like a no-name character who people referred to as Hat Girl. Right. Suddenly, she's an important character in the show. And they just drop it randomly in like a throwaway line that she's dead.
Right.
And then, so I said to my sister, and I think my sister agrees with me, I would have preferred had they never announced Hillary Swank was going to be in this series. Because I feel like she is the specter that hangs over Yellowjackets season 3. Okay. They announced that she was going to be in this show before episode 1. Now we're 70% through the season.
Right.
And every episode you're like, wait, is she coming? Is she sick? And yeah. I genuinely think it has affected the show. Okay. Because you have a this isn't a random actress. This is a 2-time Oscar-winning actress who you're waiting to show up. And now there's only 2 characters that she can be. I believed from the beginning that she is Melissa. Right. Now, all of a sudden, and it sounds like you're hinting to it, that she's going to play Hannah's mysterious daughter. Right. So here's what bothers me about that. Okay. What bothers me about that is that we've gotten the cell phone, we've gotten the tape, we've gotten the brakes, we've gotten the freezer. There's all these things happening to Shauna. Nothing's happening to everybody else. Not like the tape was delivered to Shauna. The cell phone was delivered to Shauna. So my thing is they are making it very clear that somebody from the past has it in for Shauna, not the Yellowjackets as a whole.
Right.
And if they're going to suddenly, 7 episodes in, say that it's a character that we never knew existed who is the daughter of a character we just met, that to me is bad storytelling and bad writing.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of a show like this, and I'm going to bring up Lost again,
Oh boy.
is they want the audience doing what we're doing.
Right.
They want us to watch this show and then to talk about it and say, "Hey, Pete, so who do you think is leaving this cell phone for Shauna in the bathroom? Do you think somebody cut her brakes? Who do you think that could be? It's probably the same person who left that tape, right?" And they want us to have this dialogue and they
Right.
want us to posit theories.
Right.
And if the only way that works in a fair way is
Yeah.
if it's possible for us to get the right answer. It's
Mhm.
not possible.
Right.
It's like it's like, ending a movie or ending a TV series with the, "Oh, it was a dream the whole time."
Yeah.
That's like the first time anyone ever did that ending. It's like, "Oh my God, it was a dream the whole time."
Right.
Every time after that, it's a major cop out and it's an insult to the audience because you're just pulling the audience along.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we're
Yeah.
sitting here wondering who left the cell phone, who delivered the tape, and it's a character we could have never possibly picked because they've never introduced her or her mother,
Mhm.
that would genuinely annoy me, and
Uh-oh.
I would genuinely hate it, which is why I am staying steadfast that Hillary Swank is Melissa and Melissa is still alive, because I think it would be a total disservice to the show to
Yeah.
do it the other way. I I also think that this daughter, I think that might all be a red herring.
Okay. What do you mean?
Like, maybe Hannah had a daughter. I bet I think the daughter might not have any idea what the hell Shauna is talking about. She might not know who the Yellowjackets are. She might not even know who her mother was if her mother gave her up for adoption at a young age. And it could all just be like Shauna thinking, "Oh my God, it's Hannah's daughter." And then we find out it was Melissa the whole time.
Interesting, interesting, interesting. Okay, well, there's one line of dialogue they say in the car that kind of addresses what you're talking about. They say, like, I think Misty's the one that says it. They say, why are they doing this now? We've been back for 25 years. Why are they starting to do all this stuff right now? And that's an interesting point. And I tried to come up with answers for that myself. I was like, okay, well, like, how have the Yellow Jackets been in the media recently? Like the survivors, right? I know Thaisa has kind of had this scandalous history with her politics and like everything that happened in her life. Nat just died. Maybe whoever's threatening them right now or blackmailing them was not doing things because of respect for Nat or something, or Travis. Or maybe they thought that Nat and Travis were like innocents and they're dead now. And then the kind of the bad Yellow Jackets are still around. Because a lot of things have happened to them in the present day. I'm kind of trying to think of like, what was the catalyst that started all this stuff? Because when the show began, the Yellow Jackets didn't interact with each other as adults.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they all came together. And the catalyst was Travis's death, right?
I believe so. If my memory serves me, yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of happening like simultaneous with the blackmailing of Shauna, but that was by her husband, though.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that it's like kind of all flaring up and like all this crazy stuff has happened and nothing's happened for 25 years. But I think that could even tie back with your Civil War idea that like maybe whoever's coming after like held back because like Nat and Travis were on the good side and now the good side people are gone. And so it's just the bad ones. And now it's time to get revenge on them. I don't know.
So here's my other thing that I noticed.
Okay.
why would Melissa? So Melissa is being the who killed Lottie, right? That's
Yeah.
the who killed Lottie is one of the big story arcs.
Right.
One of the big questions.
Right.
Another reason why, and I said this to my sister, that Melissa makes sense is because the adults, those frog fucker scientists, were there.
Wait, they fucked the.
Yes, of course.
Oh, okay. Okay. Good. 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 I'm happy for you. Yeah.
They show up. There's a moment where they all think they're going to be rescued, and then Lottie hatchets the guy in the back of the head, and Joel McHale leaps out and shoots his crossbow. And who does he hit?
Melissa.
He hits Melissa. So Melissa, and this is just my mind going, and I could be proven wrong next episode when Hilary Swank is revealed as Hannah's daughter. But in my mind, if I'm following my own imaginary trail of breadcrumbs, Melissa blamed Lottie for her getting shot with a crossbow and maybe almost dying as a result, and B, them having to spend 6 more months to another year in the wilderness, definitely another winter, because they were about to be rescued, and Lottie murdering the guy is what triggered the complete chaos that leads to them not being rescued. So maybe it's so in my mind, who killed Lottie? I don't think she fell down the stairs, but maybe it is Melissa showing up and, she wants revenge on Lottie for her actions, which kept them in the wilderness and nearly got her killed. And then maybe she turns her attention to Shauna, who she feels left her behind. Uh, she feels, oh, here's Shauna putting everything behind her, having a phony marriage with a kid and playing the suburban housewife, and, leaving her, relationship in the past. It that to me ties up a lot of loose ends and makes sense. Whereas again, just introducing this character of Hannah, just introducing the fact that, oh my God, she had a secret kid, to make that secret kid a big part of this show now would feel really extraneous and
Yeah.
forced in my mind.
Really tacked on. Yeah. And that's a great point. So let's talk about just the other threads that are going on too, because this is the meat and potatoes of the episode, like the Hannah stuff, and just the three people. But we also have some more stuff with Thaisa and Van. Actually, my favorite scene in the whole episode has nothing to do with the past. It's actually in the present. There's that part where what's Shauna's daughter's name?
Callie.
So, and Jeff is the husband, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Callie and Jeff are having this conversation. This is one of my favorite scenes, maybe in the whole show, where she's like, "Do you think that it's possible that mom is a bad person?" I love that scene because it's like they're just kind of, yeah, and it's a great thing. It's like a great scene because it's like, we've been trying so hard to make this suburban life work, trying to think that she's a good person, when it's like maybe she's actually a bad person. And Sherry, I was talking to Sherry about Yellowjackets. We were just on a trip to San Antonio, and she had some thoughts on the whole series because I was telling her what had happened this season, and she's like, "Yeah, Shauna is kind of a bad person. Like when we're introduced to her, she's having Jeff cheat on Jackie. Like it's not, and there's no reason for that besides like maybe being in Jackie's shadow and feeling jealous of her. But she's like making him cheat on his girlfriend, right? And then, she's traumatized by Jack. But would I freeze again?
You just for like a blip. You're back.
Oh, okay. But she's pretty cold blooded. I get the whole thing of like she's upset about her baby dying and things like that, but I actually dislike her the most out of everybody in the past.
Oh, I mean, I genuinely think yes, she's had two traumatic incidences but you can also make the connection that she was at best a flawed person who becomes socio-psychopathic. But yeah, like as an adult, there's no redeeming qualities to her. Like she throws every other adult she throws under the bus. Like again, like it feels like it was almost a different show at this point, but she openly cheats on her husband and then murders the guy and then forces her husband to help her cover that up.
Yeah.
She basically gets her daughter involved in a police investigation where she's almost pimping out her daughter to a cop to try to blackmail the cops.
Yeah.
uh she's bringing Jeff's dumb friend Randy to the hotel to like make alibis. it she's a terrible human being. And like I that scene with Callie and Jeff was so great, of like, and like I almost feel like I want Callie to like rescue Jeff
Yeah. Yeah.
and be like, Dad, like let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's this trope of like kind of the annoying teenage daughter on shows like I think like 24 had an example of that. I didn't watch 24 though. I know that Homeland had this really annoying teenage daughter, and you just always be like, oh, it's the daughter scene. And that's the way I felt about Callie for so much of this show. But then this season I've started to like Callie more. And then this episode I actually really liked Callie.
Yeah.
You
The
know?
other scene in this episode that I liked, and my sister and I were talking about this, was the hospital scene
Yep.
where Van
Tyson.
is looks like dying from her cancer again.
Right.
And she finally calls out Thaisa for basically being not the real Thaisa. But then she has this amazing scene where Van is talking to Van. And it's like the first time we've ever seen the two actors of the same character meet. I said this to you a few weeks ago. I'm gonna double down on it now. I think Van started the fire in the cabin.
Agreed.
Because this is the second time the continuing motif of the Van character has been fire. She was pulled out of the burning airplane and left scarred from the burning airplane. She had the vision in the cave where she's sitting in the cabin and a flame, an ember from the fireplace just poofs out, fire starts, she can't escape. And now this is the third time where, the second time in her own head, where a fire has started and she's trapped in it. And I don't know if she started the fire on purpose, but I think we're going to find out eventually that somehow, some way, she was present and responsible for the fire starting. I hope the show does not forget that, but this is, again, maybe I'm giving the writers too much credit, but when there is a story, an incomplete story arc of who burned down the cabin, I'm using a lot of finger quotes this episode. When there's an overarching incomplete plot point of who burnt down the cabin, and this is the second dream sequence, kind of vision sequence involving one character with fire. I want to think that that's the writers giving us that hint. That that it was Van. I don't know if she did it maliciously. Maybe it was as simple as the first vision where she's falling asleep and something like just a spark out of the fireplace causes a wood cabin to go up in flames. But yeah, I think I think that Van started the fire, and I also think Van is not long for this show. adult man anyway.
I agree. I agree because the title of the episode is called Croak, and obviously the beginning has a sequence of frogs, and they talk about frogs a lot. But I was like, oh, is it Croak? Like one of them is going to die, and it's kind of interesting because essentially we have 5 Yellowjackets that are alive in the present, right? Thaisa, Van, Misty, Shauna, and Lottie, right? Those are the 5. And
Well,
Nat,
4 now. Lottie's dead.
Lottie, right. That's what I'm getting at is that like the number's dwindling, and if Van goes too, then we're losing another one again.
Also, Van dying might be like the straw that breaks the camel's back for Thaisa, and she could just lose it all, like
Yeah,
mentally. Like she
yeah,
can just become the other, the man with no eyes
yeah,
will take over without Van to keep her grounded.
yeah,
Uh, and so that, again, like I'm actually talking about, I feel like I've spent 35 minutes talking about like potential future outcomes for this show, which shows that they got me back. They got me back. I'm completely now invested in what happens next episode.
yeah.
I need Hilary Swank to show up because again, I feel like she is like this specter hanging over this series. They announced that she was going to be in it before. If they had not announced that Hilary Swank was going to be in this show, then I feel like it would be such a cool moment when she shows up next week and we're like, oh, Hillary Swank, who is she? And
Right,
then
right,
we
right,
find out, but now it's like we've been sitting here and my sister's been sitting here and my sister's been on like, the Yellow Jackets YouTube and TikToks and
Reddit.
deep
Yeah.
dives on the internet. And for 7 episodes, everybody's been like, who's Hilary Swank? Who's Hilary Swank? Is she this character? Is she that character? Oh, she's going to be Melissa. Oh, she's going to be another Yellow Jacket. Oh, she's going to be, oh, now she's Hannah's daughter. Which
Right,
I don't even know if the Hannah's daughter thing makes sense from an age perspective
right, right, right,
because Hannah doesn't look like, even if Hannah had a kid when she was a teenager,
right.
she didn't look like she was old enough to have a kid that would have been the same age as the Yellow Jackets.
Well, let's say that she's 30, right? She had a kid when she was 15. So the kid
Okay.
would be around the Yellow Jackets age, right? Because
All
they're all
right.
in high
I
school.
guess I can. Yeah. Hilary Swank is in the similar age range of actresses to like the ones who are playing the adults.
Right.
Uh, yeah. Because like if you think about it, the Yellow Jackets should technically be in their like early, almost mid 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah,
if they're like 17 when the plane crashes,
yeah.
25 years later they're 42. So if
Yeah,
they're like
they're around our
senior,
age. Yeah.
yeah, they're basically our age. Okay. So
That's the
yeah,
way, yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah, the show is very relatable for us because I mean they always played music from like when we were fucking high school kids, right?
Yeah. And
I was
my
just
my wife also had me cover up the guy she murdered during her affair and
oh.
yeah, so it's very similar.
All right. Well that's
I'm
good to
just kidding.
know.
I love you, Athena.
Well, watch out, she's got a knife, man. But what I was gonna say was that the way that the show ends, there's so much potential because Joel McHale's alive, Hannah's alive, and it's not necessarily that they're aligned. They could work together. They could be like, we got to get away from these kids. They could murder them like right away when they get back to camp, which might happen the way that this show works. But it'd be so much more interesting. I think that the show gets much more interesting when there's at least one adult with the kids because you need that kind of that voice of reason, that regular person. And that's why Coach Ben was so compelling when he was on,
Yeah.
because he's a
My
contrast. Yeah, go ahead.
my sister is firm in her stance that Hannah ends up being Pit Girl.
Mm-hmm. Could be.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm hoping that maybe Hannah and even Joel McHale make it to the end of this season, and maybe they're there for the beginning of next season as well.
Yeah.
I think because Lottie's actions had an immediate ripple effect on the Yellow Jackets. You had Mari and the other girl, the girl who's trying to get the arrow out of Melissa.
Yeah.
They like loudly cursed out
Mari.
Lottie
Oh,
for
Lottie. Yeah.
yeah, they loudly cursed her out for like murdering that guy and for screwing up their chances to get home.
Yep.
You know, Van and Misty wanted to go home. You know, it's really, and you know, Nat wanted to go home.
Right.
Really, it's Lottie and Shauna, and then you know, Akila even seems to be almost brainwashed to Lottie's side of maybe she had a reason, maybe she saw him doing something. So I think that this is going to. I don't think it makes any sense to introduce these characters and then immediately kill them off in the next episode.
I agree.
I think that it does a lot to lead these to have these characters be almost like what Coach Ben was, a source of division amongst the Yellowjackets.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also actually really like that scene where they save Joel McHale because he essentially goes to run off a cliff. He stumbles, and then Travis has the rifle pointed right in his face, and he's like, "Don't waste the bullet." And I'm like, "Okay, he's gonna die right here, and just the woman's gonna live." But then they save him, and I do think that they could play off that dynamic because it's like he could be on one side of the Yellow Jackets, and then Hannah could be on the other. Like I think that there's a lot of potential there. There's still 3 episodes left of this season, and then if they're going with their plan, there's 2 seasons left of the show.
Yeah.
So there's 5 seasons. I don't know. It would really suck balls if the show got canceled before, they answered the questions.
Well, you know, like 2.5 weeks ago, I would have said at this point, cancel it. I'm losing interest every week. But of course, now they've rehooked me and I'm like excited for next week's episode. So now I fully expect them to cancel the show right as it starts to get great again. That is, you know, that would be like the Murphy's Law of television or
Pretty much.
streaming or whatever you call it now.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're going to come back. We're going to cover the rest of the season, which there are 3 more episodes. Danny
Yes.
and I are actually going to pop over and do another recording now where we're going to talk about David Lynch's Fire Walk with Me. Now, you might be like, well, how's that connected to Yellowjackets? It's not, but Lynch does absolutely play with the idea of reality versus fiction or dreams. And that's a big part of Yellowjackets. Is this real? Is this supernatural? So
there's also a shitload of weird stuff in the wilderness in Twin Peaks.
Yes. And young high school girls like Laura Palmer. So there's some Yellowjackets connection. I'm sure, I have no doubt in my mind that Twin Peaks is a slight influence on Yellowjackets in some way. Because it's influence on everything, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to go do that recording. You guys, let us know what you think in the comments. Is Hillary Swank Melissa? Is she Hannah's daughter? Are you into the show now because of this episode? Let us know and send us some clips of frogs fucking. We'll see y'all next time.